And first up this morning, Kevin McCarthy's smackdown. The GOP leader busted up the Democrats' plans to vote on Biden's tax and spend agenda Thursday night. 8.5 hours, forcing the vote to be delayed until Friday morning while fighting the Biden agenda.
This evening showed that no matter the time, the day, or the circumstances, House Republicans will always fight for you, fight for your family, and fight for our country.
Joining me right now after that marathon speech is GOP leader Kevin McCarthy. Congressman, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. Congratulations. How is your voice doing after 8.5 hours speaking?
You know, my voice is still strong because it's still strong for the American people. You know, when I went to the floor, I had no idea we would speak that long. It wasn't about breaking the record. It was about breaking down this bill. More than 2,000 pages, and the Democrats were only allowing, once they put that manager's amendment in, 10 minutes on each side to debate. And the amount of heckling that they would try to do to stop me from being able to talk. But what we really found, Maria, with one-party rule in 1 year, this big government socialism isn't working. It's not working when we have the highest inflation in 31 years. These gas prices, when this big government cripples American energy industry, but begs OPEC and Russia to produce more. When our military is focused on wokeism instead of defeating and winning war and keeping up with China. Or if you watch that our Attorney General, now in a big government socialism, turns and goes after parents. And if you listen to the Ways and Means chairman, he praised and he said, we need to build up bigger bureaucracy. That's what this bill is about. And that's what I want. That's what drove me to keep talking, so the American people could understand what's in it.
So, Congressman, you said that there was heckling. Were they heckling you while you were speaking? Did that also drive you to keep going? You were there for 8.5 hours. You're saying you got there, you weren't planning to be there all night?
No, I was going down to make a statement, to talk through this bill. I had a speech that I'd been working on for a while. It'd probably have taken me about 45 minutes to give that speech at the longest. But when I got onto the floor, what was so interesting of how bad they were fighting back with every word I would say. And I know back home you can't really hear it or see it, but when you're on the floor you can. And what's interesting, it was AOC and Tim Ryan. Those were the ones who would yell the loudest. And here's Tim Ryan, who used to be the alternative to Nancy Pelosi, who had partnered to become this big government socialism. And they would scream from the other side, trying to shut me down. And then you've watched the Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, come in and tap every Democrat to leave the chambers thinking I would stop. And that's when I said to the American public, you can leave, it's okay. I'm not going to stop.
Yeah.
Because I'm not there for the Democrats. I was there for the American public, and I'm still there for the American public, because this bill, if it passes the Senate, won't be the same. It's going to come back to the House. We can defeat it.
Okay. So you think that it goes to the Senate and it will be stopped and then it will have to be changed again. So you think the House will have to have another vote on this once it fails in the Senate?
Yeah, not if it fails. It's only if it fails in the Senate, it dies. But if the Senate changes it, any of those changes has to come back to the House. So we have another bite at the apple here. And more people who learn about this. That was my point. I want people to know what's in the bill. I want people to know what they are doing, that this big government socialism isn't working. They see it every day. I mean, think for one moment, Maria, that in 8 months, this border being open, that more people, 1.4 million, have entered illegally. That's more than the last 3 years combined. When you take an attorney general that turns and lies to Congress, that they are actually looking at parents and calling them terrorists. When you watch what they have done, as you sit down as a family, I don't know how long you're going to drive or how far for Thanksgiving, but your gasoline prices is the highest it's been since the last time Joe Biden was in office. Or your Thanksgiving dinner is going to be the most expensive in American history. Or when you sit down to pray before and give thanks. I hope we all talk about those 13 Gold Star families that lost their lives because of that prisoner coming out of Bagram because we left, or the Americans who are left behind. That is what big government socialism has given us.
And we were waiting for the CBO score on this bill. We knew that it was not the true cost because all of the gimmicks, they've got some of the programs saying that they will sunset when, in fact, we know that they're not going to go away after 1 or 2 years. The CBO says it will add to the deficit $750 billion after 5 years, $367 billion after 10. Did you see any pushback once we did get the CBO score from the Democrats?
No, I don't know why those Democrats held it up to say they had to wait for the CBO score. We now know that the president and the Democrats have been lying to us all along, saying the bill was paid for. Because even if you listen to his chief of staff, who would brag that this bill is bigger than the New Deal, that they are spending more than America spent to win World War II. But why? For bigger government. This is what happens when you have one-party rule. We've watched what transformed. You know, history repeats itself. The same thing happened when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker. After we won Virginia and New Jersey governorships, 4 days later they passed Obamacare. We've watched the penalties of what happened to America. That was the point that we were talking about. But they're literally cheering this. But what's worse today than what happened with Obamacare is we didn't have gasoline prices this high. We didn't have inflation at the height of more than 3 decades. And what's going to happen, the pain that this will cause will only be greater now.
What about all of these retirements, Congressman? Look, you mentioned Tim Ryan. Tim Ryan heckling you. He's actually leaving the House. He wants to make a run for the Senate. You've also got lots of other retirements in the House. We know now the majority is crumbling for Nancy Pelosi. Democrat Representative Eddie Bernice Johnson officially announces her retirement. How many openings will there be, and how many seats do you believe you can churn in the midterm elections in 2022?
Well, Tim Ryan's not acting like he's running for Senate in Ohio. He's acting like he's running for the Senate of Vermont to be next to Bernie Sanders. But what we've watched in 2010, there was 17 Democrats who announced retirement total. There's already 16. The budget chair, the science chair, 15% of the Democrats who sit on appropriations have announced retirement. And I wonder if Speaker Pelosi will even be here. She acts like a lame duck speaker. She seems that she's on a farewell tour, going to Europe 3 times in 3 months. You've watched Democrat after Democrat because they know that they are going to lose the majority. They know what their policies have done to America. And they know by voting what they just did that they're trying to lock in. And this is what they said on the floor, the big government. Remember what AOC yelled at me from back of the room when I quoted Congresswoman Spamberger, who said, we did not elect Joe Biden to be FDR, to give us a New Deal. AOC screamed, I did. It is the socialist wing of the Democratic Party that has taken over. Never before in American history has a bill so big gone through. And that's even not the worst part about it. It simply does not work when the government of the majority party wants to hire 87,000 new IRS agents to try to pay for this bill. And you know what that means? A new statistic came out. That means there'll be 1.2 million more audits. And half of those audits will be focused on Americans who make $75,000 or less. If you think they're just going after millionaires, you're wrong. Anybody who spends $28 a day, the IRS is going to be spying on what you're doing. So anyone that tells you they're lying to you, just like the Attorney General lied to the American public of whether he's spying
on
parents.
A minute ago, you said you're questioning whether or not Nancy Pelosi will even be there. I saw your tweet. She's burning down the House before she leaves. Are you suggesting she may step down before the midterms? We were reporting a couple of weeks ago that there was a rumor going around that she wants to get her spending program through and then skip out.
Well, everything that she does, she's talked about this as the culmination of her career, this legislation. And when you think about the damage she has done to this House, she has changed rules of the House where the minority does not have a say. This was the only ability that I have, what is called a magic minute. And while I was speaking, she was doing everything in her power to get the chairman of the rules, to try to intimidate the parliamentarian, to take my words down and to stop me from speaking, but I would not stop. So she removed people from the chambers to try to get me to quit, but I would not quit. And we're not going to quit. You know what we did last week? We introduced the Parents' Bill of Rights. Because parents do have a say in their schools. They have a right to know what's being taught. They have a right to know what the reading material is. They have a right to know if there is some victim or some cause of an action inside their school. They have a right to know what is being spent in their education for their children as well. But the Democrats have fought that. They fight that in this bill itself. They incentivize people not to work. Yes.
What about the redistricting, Congressman? You said that you are expecting to win seats. How many, and how does the redistricting going on affect that as well?
Well, every 10 years you take a census, and then you proportionately change districts to make them equal throughout. Some states lose, some states win. What's happened in this process, meaning when it gets more congressional seats or less. California is losing for the first time in history, while Texas and Florida are gaining. I think the policy matters. I don't think at the end of the day, I think redistricting comes out level between Republicans and Democrats. The difference will be here is that the policies that the Democrats have produced under one party, one rule, if you look at the current polling, they have done the same poll since 1980, 110 times, asking the American public who they would vote for to direct Congress. Never in the history of that poll 110 times has it been so strong for Republicans versus Democrats, not even in 2010. But if you look at Virginia and New Jersey, that is a telltale sign of what the future holds for the Democrats.
All right, Congressman, we'll be watching. Thanks very much. We will keep watching what you do next. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Thank you, sir.